Hey guys, got two people waiting. It actually doesn't tell me before I begin streaming whether people are waiting for me or not, so. Well, it tells me there are 0 people. So that's fun. Hang on. Go on then. I'm a cat door opener. I'm gonna get really strong just on one side of my back. But yep. Hello. Hello, it's time for Frankenstein. I know that we usually spend a little bit of time just talking about what's going on, but obviously it's a lot. So, and it's a lot that I'm not qualified to speak about. You're not a 0. You're a hero. Yeah, that is a thing. I heard that on TV. That's real. So we're going to focus on something less upsetting, which is a hideous being given life from bits and pieces of dead bodies, tracking down his creator and demanding to be made a woman so it can have one. Thank you. It's I don't like it right now. I did the wash and set thing again. Tiny little curls all over my head with a wig cap over the top and then brushed out the next day. It's quite a bit bigger and fluffier than I wanted. So we'll see how that looks tomorrow. But I didn't think today was probably appropriate for the Candy Pink anime wig, so. I'm very, very heartened that people are marching in Altea Square. That's pretty great. I was going to say I wish I was there, but I fucking hate Altea Square, so. And crowds. But, as a philosopher once said, posting probably is the truest form of any kind of action. Meanwhile, I've been fucking with turfs just to keep my spirits up during this apocalypse that we live in. So that's been fun. Today I was talking to a guy called, calling himself William of Ockham, with a little picture of a little medieval philosopher fella. His arguments were not good. Oh, you're welcome. I don't really do it to be public. I just like entertaining myself with them. But yeah. We're there. Shit, that's good. That's really good. But yeah, the J.K. Rowling apologists are not. He added me to it, but he followed me, right? This guy. I don't know if there's a word for guys who don't have fake Roman names and pictures of Roman busts as their Avi, but they have like medieval ones. I don't know if they're like a step further in this evolution of dickhead, but yeah, it is cold. But yeah, he followed me. He was like, you're a moron, but you're entertaining. That deserves a follow. And I think when I didn't follow back, he got mad. He added me to a list for pedo apologists and one for MRAs. So being called an MRA was a new one for me. Hi, Josh. Being called a pedo was a new one for me as well. I didn't even have sex till I was 23. That's how opposed I am. It wasn't. It was for other reasons. Social reasons. But so that was fun. That was the fun thing that happened today. And then he blocked me before I could ask why. He thought I was a man going my own way. And he was like, just being in a dress doesn't make you a woman, lad. And I was like, Yeah, but I'm not a confused young man though. I'm a lady. And he was like, "How do you know?" And he's sitting there waiting for me to post, "Because I have a uterus," and fall into my own trap, and then by my own logic. I feel like he was probably quite sad when it didn't happen. But anyway, moving on, we're going to recap a little bit. Uh, I have just I've realized what the little digression in the creature's story is about. Yeah, I think they are confused old men. Oh, you're a confused old man. Oh, okay. Me and my sister have been teaching my dad social justice because we think it's funny. Um, we tried to explain incels to him and the red pill, and he just laughed because he thought we were doing a bit. And then when he found out that incels were real, he got quite sad. It was just like, oh man, oh no. Not on their behalf, you know. One time when I was living at home, I was just sitting on my bed reading a book. Dad knocks on the door, pokes his head around the door, and goes, "Do you remember Pepe Le Pew?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "That was problematic," and leaves. And I was like, "Wow, we did it." Okay, so anyway, Frankenstein. So in the creature's explanation about what he's been doing, I woke my dad. Don't wake dad, he has a lot to answer for. I also woke him once when I was 4 by just pulling his eyelids open. I knew he was in there. He was. He was in there and he was surprised. But yeah, the whole like sub story with the son and his fiance and her father who got done for a crime he didn't commit, that was all to explain how the creature knew that taking the little miniature of Victor's mother from the dead body of little baby William and planting it on Justine would get her into trouble. That just explains how he knew about this, you know, legal nonsense. So whoops. So I was, yeah, I was kind of siding with the creature. I was, you know, he's abandoned. He's, you know, he lives in a shitty world. Uh, exactly, exactly. Um, I was thinking about it, and then I worked it out in my mind. Just call me an academic up in my ivory crown. But anyway, I'm not on the creature's side anymore because he was like, "Oh, this girl is asleep and she's so pretty. I bet if I woke her up, she would scream just because I've been watching her sleep for ages and I'm an 8 foot tall monster. Women are trash. I'm going to get her hanged." Yeah, it depends. It all depends on context, what you do with it. Where's my hair? Don't like this. I'm looking forward to sleeping on it and hopefully making the curl just down a little bit. Because right now, I feel like I have the Queen's haircut. He's at 17. Oh, yeah, the creature's 17 now. Yep. He thinks the government should issue him a girlfriend, as one of us said last time. Well, it is. It is very bouncy and full of life. Oh, still got my baby ears. They never fell off, my adult ears never grow in. That's what I'm going to tell children next time one of them sasses me on an aeroplane about having small child's ears. So, the last chapter we ended exactly when your child becomes horny, you can be like, yes, I know you want to like just fuck a couch or anything that will stand still long enough. But when it's another human being, here are some ground rules. And Victor failed to do that. So at the end of the last chapter, the creature has finished his story. And he is saying, he started with it going like, I have something to ask you, and once I've told you my wonderful tale, you will be like, oh shit, no problem, I will make you a woman with a dog's brain. Oh, I got sassed big time on an aeroplane. Sorry, I know I'm not reading the chapter, but I did. I was sat next to a little 4-year-old girl who we had never met. We had been introduced because I was chatting with her mum in the line, and she was sitting next to me, so mum could concentrate on the baby. So I was chatting to her, and she reached up and pointed and just touched one of my ears, and she goes, you have little ears, but you are not a child. And I was just like, ma'am, are you accusing me of something? I feel like it's not really a statement, it's more of a... I can't even remember what I told her. But next time I'm definitely going to tell them that my baby ears never fell off and I didn't grow adult ears. Oh, Danny, you understand my pain. Okay, so Frankenstein, aka Incel Wars, chapter 17. Oh, the end of chapter 16 was... we may not part until you have promised to comply with my requisition. I am alone and miserable, man will not associate with me, but one as deformed and horrible as myself would not deny herself to me. My companion must be of the same species and have the same defects. This being, you must create. Yeah, well, the fact that my... hey, Pan and Scan, what's up? We haven't started yet. We've been talking about how I get bullied on airplanes by children. So the creature is actually more advanced than an incel, because he's willing to lower his standards of feminine beauty for his bang maid. That's very saddening. Yeah. You gotta make me a girl version of me. It looks exactly like me, but with a bow on its head. Yeah, well, I just tell people that's why I can't listen and do what I'm told, because I can't hear you. My ears are too small. It's a physical condition. All right. Get some cherry lip balm on. Ooh. Barely any tint, but it does smell nice. Okay, here we go. Hang on, we lost a couple of people. Am I still streaming? Can you still see and hear me? Because that tends to happen right before the stream goes all fucky. I thought I heard an Ivy. Am I still here? Okay. Good. Sometimes the viewer numbers go down right before. It'll be pretty funny to have an episode, like an entire video that doesn't have any Frankenstein in it. Awesome. Okay, chapter 17. We are back in Victor's mind. Awesome. Cool. The being finished speaking and fixed his looks upon me in the expectation of a reply. Oh, cats are out being bitches. They're playing the Game of Thrones. Not the sex parts, the violence parts. I was bewildered, perplexed, and unable to arrange my ideas sufficiently to understand the full extent of his proposition. He continued, you must create a female for me, with whom I can live in the interchange of those sympathies necessary for my being. This you alone can do, and I demand it of you as a right which you must not refuse to concede. No sympathy for the creature anymore. The latter part of his tale had kindled anew in me the anger that had died away while he narrated his peaceful life among the cottagers, and as he said this, I could no longer suppress the rage that burned within me. "I do refuse it," I replied, "and no torture shall ever extort a consent from me. You may render me the most miserable of men, but you shall never make me base in my own eyes. Shall I create another like yourself, whose joint wickedness might desolate the world? Begone, I have answered you. You may torture me, but I will never consent." "You are in the wrong," replied the fiend, "and instead of threatening, I am content to reason with you. I am malicious because I am miserable. Am I not shunned and hated by all mankind? You, my creator, would tear me to pieces in triumph. Remember that, and tell me why I should pity man more than he pities me. You would not call it murder if you could precipitate me into one of those ice rifts that destroy my frame, the work of your own hands. Shall I respect man when he condemns me? Let him live with me in the interchange of kindness, and instead of injury, I would bestow every benefit upon him with tears of gratitude at his acceptance. But that cannot be. The human senses are insurmountable barriers to our union. Yet mine shall not be the submission of abject slavery. I will revenge my enemies, my injuries, his injuries and his enemies. He's just going to revenge everything he can find. I will revenge my injuries. If I cannot inspire love, I will cause fear, and chiefly towards you, my arch enemy, because my creator, do I swear inextinguishable hatred. Have a care. I will work at your destruction, nor finish till I desolate your heart, so that you shall curse the hour of your birth. The creature is for once correct, in that although life is agony and the earth is a hell, if you get in it regularly, things feel a lot better. And really, isn't that the moral to take away from this? I think so. I can't really remember. It's been so long. A fiendish rage animated him as he said this. His face was wrinkled into contortions too horrible for human eyes to behold, but presently he calmed himself and proceeded. I intended to reason. This passion is detrimental to me, for you do not reflect that you are the cause of its excess. If any being felt emotions of benevolence towards me, I should return them 100 and 100-fold. For that one creature's sake, I would make peace with the whole kind. But I now indulge in dreams of bliss that cannot be realized. What I ask of you is reasonable and moderate. I demand a creature of another sex, but as hideous as myself. The gratification is small, but it is all that I can receive, and it shall content me. It is true we shall be monsters, cut off from all the world, but on that account we shall be more attached to one another. Our lives will not be happy, but they will be harmless and free from the misery I now feel. My Creator, make me happy. Let me feel gratitude towards you for one benefit. Let me see that I excite the sympathy of some existing thing. Do not deny me my request. Bro, make me an ugly girlfriend. Make me a gross, ugly girlfriend. And then I'll go away. I won't come back asking for an even grosser, even uglier girlfriend. Yeah, his gratification is a little bit small. That's why he's compensating with these huge emotions. Oh, I know. Like, he's just like, well, if all the world hates us, then we'll kind of have to stay together. And people who have to stay together are always very happy. I keep thinking, ow, my leg. I keep thinking I see Niobe's eyes outside. I was moved. I shuddered when I thought of the possible consequences of my consent, but I felt that there was some justice in his argument. His tale and the feelings he now expressed proved him to be a creature of fine sensations, and did not I, as his maker, owe him all the portion of happiness that it was in my power to bestow? He saw my change of feeling and continued, "If you consent, neither you nor any other human being shall ever see us again. I will go to the vast wilds of South America. My food is not that of man. I do not destroy the lamb and the kid to glut my appetite. Acorns and berries afford me sufficient nourishment. My companion will be of the same nature as myself and will be content with the same fare. We shall make our bed of dried leaves. The sun will shine on us as on man, and will ripen our food. The picture I present to you is peaceful and human, and you must feel that you can deny it only in the wantonness of power and cruelty. Pitiless as you have been towards me, I now see compassion in your eyes. Let me seize the favourable moment and persuade you to promise what I so ardently desire." Creature's a vegan. She might not be. He doesn't know. "You propose," replied I, "to fly from the habitations of man, to dwell in those wilds where the beasts of the field be your only companions. How can you, who long for the love and sympathy of man, persevere in this exile? You will return and again seek their kindness, and you will meet with their detestation. Your evil passions will be renewed, and you will then have a companion to aid you in the task of destruction. This may not be. Cease to argue the point, for I cannot consent." Oh, I know. Well, what if he makes a woman and she's a lesbian monster? Then he has to make 2 more women. And then what if neither of them are gay? You have to make another dude. And then, wait a second, there are non-binary people. Oh no. Okay, this just got completely too hard for my brain. But long story short, we're all Frankensteins now. It's in the exact same flowery language, like, "Make but for me these chicky nugs, and I and my mate shall disappear, flying from the realms of men, to live a humble life, like Rousseau or one of those weirdos who live in the woods." I would have the Frankensteins. Rousseau. I mean, I'm thinking about Rousseau, but I meant to say Thoreau. I don't fucking know who those guys are. I'm just I have a female brain, which means I'm not worth arguing with for turfs. Kind of upset me. Just the idea that he didn't think I was worth arguing with because I'm a cis female. Well, upset. For $8,000 a month, I will stop. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Cease to argue the point, for I cannot consent. How inconstant are your feelings? But a moment ago, you were moved by my representations. And why do you again harden yourself to my complaints? I swear to you, by the earth which I inhabit, and by you that made me, that with the companion you bestow, I will quit the neighbourhood of man and dwell, as it may chance, in the most savage of places. My evil passions will have fled, for I shall meet with sympathy. My life will flow quietly away, and in my dying moments I shall not curse my Maker. His words had a strange effect upon me. I compassionated him and sometimes felt a wish to console him. But when I looked upon him, when I saw the filthy mass that moved and talked, oh, he is an incel, my heart sickened and my feelings were altered to those of horror and hatred. I tried to stifle these sensations. I thought that as I could not sympathize with him, I had no right to withhold from him the small portion of happiness which was yet in my power to bestow. You swear, I said, to be harmless. But have you not already shown a degree of malice that should reasonably make me distrust you? May not even this be a feint that will increase your triumph by affording a wider scope for your revenge? How is this? I must not be trifled with, and I demand an answer. If I have no ties and no affections, hatred and vice must be my portion. The love of another will destroy the cause of my crimes, and I shall become a thing of whose existence everyone will be ignorant. My vices are the children of a forced solitude that I abhor, and my virtues will necessarily arise when I live in communion with an equal. I shall feel the affections of a sensitive being and become linked to the chain of existence and events from which I am now excluded. Woman is not a bath you get into. I know. I feel like the creature cannot be that ugly. It's ridiculous. I paused some time to reflect on all he had related and the various arguments which he had employed. And come on, Victor, you've been like, oh, well, you make a few good points. No, I can't possibly. Ah, but yet, do I have any right to say no? But I must say no. No wonder the creature's fucking frustrated. I thought of the promise of virtues which he had displayed on the opening of his existence, and the subsequent blight of all kindly feeling by the loathing and scorn which his protectors had manifested towards him. His power and threats were not omitted in my calculations. A creature who could exist in the ice caves of the glaciers and hide himself from pursuit among the ridges of inaccessible precipices was a being possessing faculties it would be vain to cope with. After a long pause of reflection, I concluded that the justice due both to him and my fellow creatures demanded of me that I should comply with his request. I genuinely didn't know where that was going. Yeah, we should be ranking the hottest Frankensteins in movies. And also rating how gross they think they are and complain about all the time. To make your right to exist with me, son. Turning to him, therefore, I said, I consent to your demand. On your solemn oath to quit Europe forever, and every other place in the neighbourhood of man, as soon as I shall deliver into your hands a female who will accompany you in your exile. I swear, he cried, by the sun and by the blue sky of heaven, and by the fire of love that burns my heart, that if you grant my prayer exists, you shall never behold me again. Depart to your home and commence your labours. God damn it. God damn it. Happened again, didn't it? It happened again, didn't it? Can you see and hear me? Oh, I'm live. Oh, good. This is the first time it's ever actually reconnected. My goodness. How appropriate. Sorry, I was just thinking about Frankenstein raising the female from the dead, and she and the monster stare at each other in awe, and he's just like, I'm seeing double 4 Frankensteins. Because I'm dumb as shit. Depart to your home and commence your labours. I shall watch their progress with unutterable anxiety, and fear not but that when you are ready I shall appear. Saying this, he suddenly quitted me, fearful perhaps of any change in my sentiments. I saw him descend the mountain with greater speed than the flight of an eagle, and quickly lost among the undulations of the sea of ice. I'm of that generation where you just can't you can't hear the most common phrases in the world without adding a Simpsons quote. His tale had occupied the whole day, and the sun was upon the verge of the horizon when he departed. We've all had dates like that, right? Actually, no, some of us date women. Sorry, I'm being so mean to men right now. I haven't even seen one in days. In real life. I've seen them on the telly. Nice ones. Come on, concentrate. I knew that I ought to hasten my descent towards the valley, as I should soon be encompassed in darkness. But my heart was heavy and my steps slow. The labour of winding among the little paths of the mountain and fixing my feet firmly as I advanced perplexed me, occupied as I was by the emotions which the occurrences of the day had produced. Night was far advanced when I came to the halfway resting place, and seated myself beside the fountain. The stars shone at intervals as the clouds passed from over them. The dark pines rose before me, and every here and there a broken tree lay on the ground. It was a scene of wonderful solemnity and stirred strange thoughts within me. I wept bitterly, and clasping my hands in agony, I exclaimed, "Oh, stars and clouds and winds, ye are all about to mock me. If you really pity me, crush sensation and memory. Let me become as naught. But if not, depart, depart, and leave me in darkness." This is the most teenage book I've ever read. These were wild and miserable thoughts, but I cannot. Catfight. Not close by. These were wild and miserable thoughts, but I cannot describe to you how the eternal twinkling of the stars weighed upon me, and how I listened to every blast of wind as if it were a dull, ugly siroc on its way to consume me. Morning dawned before I arrived at the village of Chamonix. I took no rest, but returned immediately to Geneva. Even in my own heart, I could give no expression to my sensations. They weighed on me with a mountain's weight, and their excess destroyed my agony beneath them. Thus I returned home, and entering the house, presented myself to the family. My haggard and wild appearance awoke intense alarm, but I answered no question. Scarcely did I speak. I felt as if I were placed under a ban, as if I had no right to claim their sympathies, as if never more might I enjoy companionship with them. Yet even thus I loved them to adoration, and to save them I resolved to dedicate myself to my most abhorred task. The prospect of such an occupation made every other circumstance of existence pass before me like a dream, and that thought only had to me the reality of life. The end of the chapter. Also, and when you hear the phrase judge, jury, and executioner, a not insignificant group of the population will just have to yell, "He's not judge, jury, and executioner." Wow, good people. Now, I'm going to have a look at the length of this next chapter, because I know I haven't been reading much lately. Yeah, so many of us. It's only 34 minutes. Would you guys like another chapter? Another chapter? Second chapter? So I don't have to tidy up the living room? Well, tidy up the living room. Get ready for bed is what I should say. I will, because I will not be doing a chapter tomorrow. I have treatment, and then therapy, and then the dentist, and then Dungeons and Dragons. Just going to be quite a test. Sorry, I'm just kind of annoyed with my hair. All right, chapter 18. Big day. Big, big, big day. Day after day, week after week passed away on my return to Geneva, and I could not collect the courage to recommence my work. I feared the vengeance of the disappointed fiend, yet I was unable to overcome my repugnance to the task which was enjoined me. I found that I could not compose a female without again devoting several months to profound study and laborious disquisition. He's doing the Assassin's Creed female assassin animation argument. Bullshit. It's just the same. Unless he's trying to make sure the creatures can reproduce. Why would he do that? Gross. Anyway, I had heard of some discoveries having been made by an English philosopher, the knowledge of which was material to my success, and I sometimes thought of obtaining my father's consent to visit England for this purpose, but I clung to every pretence of delay and shrank from taking the first step in an undertaking whose immediate necessity began to appear less absolute to me. Hi, Jesse. We've done one chapter, on to the next one, but you can listen to the first one later. I know, it sounds like work, which I don't. It's like, I'm going to need a bunch of dead bodies and one of those little tables that you put them on, and yeah, for some reason they could animate female NPCs just fine, but well, two schools of thought on that. One, oh, and two, oh. So really, I mean, I sort of vacillate between them both. Swinging, if you will. Like that thing in a clock that swings. A change indeed had taken place in me. My health, which had hitherto declined, was now much restored, and my spirits, when unchecked by the memory of my unhappy promise, rose proportionately. My father saw this change with pleasure, and he turned his thoughts towards the best method of eradicating the remains of my melancholy, which every now and then would return by fits, and with a devouring blackness overcast the approaching sunshine. At these moments I took refuge in the most perfect solitude. I passed whole days on the lake alone in a little boat, watching the clouds and listening to the rippling of the waves, silent and listless. But the fresh air and bright sun seldom failed to restore me to some degree of composure, and on my return I met the salutations of my friends with a readier smile and a more cheerful heart. Oh, Victor's definitely. I'm surprised he's gone this long without mentioning Henry Clerval, but I'm just not sure either of the Frankensteins have object permanence. Plastic bag somewhere there. It was after my return from one of these rambles that my father, calling me aside, thus addressed me. I am happy to remark, my dear son, that you have resumed your former pleasures and seem to be returning to yourself. And yet you are still unhappy and still avoid our society. For some time I was lost in conjecture as to the cause of this, but yesterday an idea struck me, and if it is well founded, I conjure you to avow it. Reserve on such a point would be not only useless, but draw down treble misery on us all. Yeah, at this point I'm not on Victor's side exactly, but I do understand him on a very deep level. Excuse me. I trembled violently at his exordium, and my father continued, I confess, my son, that I have always looked forward to your marriage with our dear Elizabeth as the tie of our domestic comfort and the stay of my declining years. You were attached to each other from your earliest infancy. You studied together and appeared, in dispositions and tastes, entirely suited to one another. But so blind is the experience of man that what I conceive to be the best assistance to my plan may have entirely destroyed it. You perhaps regard her as your sister, without any wish that she might become your wife. Nay, you may have met with another whom you may love, and considering yourself as bound in honour to Elizabeth, this struggle may occasion the poignant misery which you appear to feel. That is kind of amazing because I didn't expect anybody to address that. Yeah, maybe raising your kids together like brother and sister was a bit weird. But don't worry, my dear father, reassure yourself. I love my cousin tenderly and sincerely. I love my sister bride, who was essentially bought to be my bride and look after my dad in his old age. I never saw any woman who excited, as Elizabeth does, my warmest admiration and affection. My future hopes and prospects are entirely bound up in the expectation of our union. Oh, don't worry, Papa. I love sneaking a peek at my cousin's sister sort of person we bought. I love peeking at her having a bath. She's the only girl I've ever seen, and she's the girl for me. I mean, there was Justine, but she's kind of off the table now. The expression of your sentiments of this subject, my dear Victor, gives me more pleasure than I have for some time experienced. If you feel thus, we shall assuredly be happy, however present events may cast a gloom over us. But it is this gloom which appears to have taken so strong a hold of your mind that I wish to dissipate. Tell me, therefore, whether you object to immediate solemnization of the marriage. We have been unfortunate, and recent events have drawn us from that everyday tranquillity befitting my years and infirmities. You are younger, yet I do not suppose, possessed as you are of a competent fortune, that an early marriage would at all interfere with any future plans of honour and utility that you may have formed. Do not suppose, however, that I would wish to dictate happiness to you, or that a delay on your part would cause me any serious uneasiness. Interpret my words with candour, and answer me, I conjure you, with confidence and sincerity. It is super gross. Oh, yeah. Oh, I think she was buried like a year ago at this point. So she'll be gross. It all works. Okay. I know that most of the people who follow me don't watch Riverdale. Because why would you? But I got kind of hooked on it. And one of the many secrets that came out during a flashback episode about all the teens' parents who look exactly like the teens do now, except in 80s clothes, that Cheryl Blossom's mother was adopted so that she could marry the son of the family. Like, she was literally in this Elizabeth situation. Gross. Why? Ew. Gross. Yeah, the dad is very supportive. He's just like, it wasn't Satan, it was like an eldritch horror that was coming through a Dungeons and Dragons game. It wasn't actually an eldritch horror, it was like a cult that used drugs on people to make them see monsters, or a bunch of kids killed themselves in the woods for the Gargoyle King, because it's called Griffins and Gargoyles. That's right. And it is fantastic seeing a D&D Satanic Panic being taken completely seriously by everybody in Riverdale. Such a good show. So dumb. So fucking dumb. I love it. I listened to my father in silence and remained for some time incapable of offering any reply. I revolved rapidly in my mind a multitude of thoughts and endeavoured to arrive at some conclusion. Alas, To me, the idea of an immediate union with my Elizabeth was one of horror and dismay. Henry Clerval! I was bound by a solemn promise which I had not yet fulfilled and dared not break. Oh, it's about the creature. Or if I did, what manifold miseries might not impend over me and my devoted family? Could I enter into a festival with this deadly weight yet hanging around my neck and bowing me to the ground? I must perform my engagement and let the monster depart with his mate before I allowed myself to enjoy the delight of a union from which I expected peace. I remembered also the necessity imposed upon me of either journeying to England or entering into a long correspondence with those philosophers of that country, whose knowledge and discoveries were of indispensable use to me in my present undertaking. The latter method of obtaining the desired intelligence was dilatory and unsatisfactory. Besides, I had an insurmountable aversion to the idea of engaging myself in my loathsome task in my father's house, while in habits of familiar intercourse with those I loved. I knew that 1,000 fearful accidents might occur, the slightest of which would disclose a tale to thrill all connected with me with horror. I was aware also that I should often lose all self-command, all capacity of hiding the harrowing sensations that would possess me during the progress of my unearthly occupation. I must absent myself from all I loved while thus employed. Once commenced, it would quickly be achieved, and I might be restored to my family in peace and happiness. My promise fulfilled, the monster would depart forever. Or, so my fond fancy imagined, some accident might meanwhile occur to destroy him and put an end to my slavery forever. Oh, Victor, you're going a little bit too far here, buddy bear. But, he's being realistic about it. He's taking a lot of paternity. The constant erection would be a dead giveaway. You're right. His father would be like, Victor, my son, I've noticed two things. That you've been very melancholy lately, and another thing. God damn it, boy. I'm trying to remember what I know about mental health care at this point, but I'm pretty sure it's still just putting leeches directly onto your brain. These feelings dictated my answer to my father. I expressed a wish to visit England, but concealing the true reasons of this request, I clothed my desires under a guise which excited no suspicion, while I urged my desire with an earnestness that easily induced my father to comply. After so long a period of an absorbing melancholy that resembled madness in its intensity and effects. Absorbing melancholy, Crow. He was glad to find that I was capable of taking pleasure in the idea of such a journey, and he hoped that change of scene and varied amusement would, before my return, have restored me entirely to myself. The duration of my absence was left to my own choice. A few months, or at most a year, was the period contemplated. One paternal kind precaution he had taken to ensure my having a companion. Without previously communicating with me, he had, in concert with Elizabeth, arranged that Clerval should join me at Strasbourg. Clerval! This is Strasbourg, isn't it? But it's spelled in a very funny way. English. This interfered with the solitude that I coveted for the prosecution of my task. Yet at the commencement of my journey, the presence of my friend could in no way be an impediment, and truly I rejoiced that thus I should be saved many hours of lonely, maddening reflection. Nay, Henry might stand between me and the intrusion of my foe. If I were alone, would he not at times force his abhorred presence on me to remind me of my task or to contemplate its progress? Strasbourg, yeah. It's it looks like Edinburgh. That's how they've spelled the Borg bit. To England, therefore, I was bound, and it was understood that my union with Elizabeth should take place immediately on my return. No, Henry. Henry is the heart and soul of this book. I will make fan fiction about him if anything happens to him. I like to imagine that instead of the wedding, it's just sex with Elizabeth. His father's like, "No, off you go to England, my boy, but when you come back, you got to bonk her on the dining table." And he's like, "I know, father. There is nothing I wish more than to bonk my adopted sister on the dining table. The real one that we eat from every night." Disgusting. Why would I say that? My father's age rendered him extremely averse to delay for the wedding. For myself, there was one reward I promised myself for my detested toils, one consolation for my unparalleled sufferings. It was the prospect of that day when, enfranchised from my miserable slavery, I might claim Elizabeth and forget the past in my union with her. Shouldn't have started that little tangent. I now made arrangements for my journey, but one feeling haunted me which filled me with fear and agitation. During my absence, I should leave my friends unconscious of the existence of their enemy and unprotected from his attacks, exasperated as he might be by my departure. But he had promised to follow me wherever I might go, and would he not accompany me to England? This imagination was dreadful in itself, but soothing inasmuch as it supposed the safety of my friends. I was agonized with the idea of the possibility that the reverse of this might happen. But through the whole period during which I was the slave of my creature, I allowed myself to be governed by the impulses of the moment, and my present sensations strongly intimated that the fiend would follow me and exempt my family from the danger of his machinations. Some people say machinations. I say machinations because that's how I heard it for the first time in Blackadder. So, it was in the latter end of September that I again quitted my native country. I guess someone woke him up when September ends. My journey had been my own suggestion, and Elizabeth therefore acquiesced, but she was filled with disquiet at the idea of my suffering away from her the inroads of misery and grief. It had been her care which provided me a companion in Clerval, and yet a man is blind to 1,000 minute circumstances which call forth a woman's sedulous attention. She longed to bid me hasten my return. 1,000 conflicting emotions rendered her mute as she bade me a tearful, silent farewell. Then how the fuck do you know if she wants you to come back soon? You don't know, you're just thinking. She's being so brave, not crying because I'm going away. What a wonderful sister and wife and cousin I have. I threw myself into the carriage that was to convey me away, hardly knowing whither I was going and careless of what was passing round. I remembered only, and it was with a bitter anguish that I reflected on it, to order that my chemical instruments should be packed to go with me. Filled with dreary imaginations, I passed through many beautiful and majestic scenes, but my eyes were fixed and unobserving. I could only think of the bourne of my travels and the work which was to occupy me whilst they endured. I think Elizabeth knows what she's doing, sending Clerval with him. I'm not sure Frankenstein knows what's up, but I think Elizabeth does. But yeah, she would probably get quite suspicious about the necrophilia. Beg your pardon. I have been sleepy. After some days spent in listless indolence, during which I traversed many leagues, I arrived at Strasbourg, where I waited 2 days for Clerval. He came. Alas, how great was the contrast between us! He was alive to every new scene, joyful when he saw the beauties of the setting sun, and more happy when he beheld it rise and recommence a new day. He pointed out to me the shifting colours of the landscape and the appearances of the sky. "This is what it is to live," he cried. "Now I enjoy existence. But you, my dear Frankenstein, wherefore are you desponding and sorrowful?" In truth, I was occupied by gloomy thoughts, and Neither saw the descent of the evening star nor the golden sunrise reflected in the Rhine. And you, my friend, would be far more amused with the journal of Clerval, who observed the scenery with an eye of feeling and delight, than in listening to my reflections. I, a miserable wretch, haunted by a curse that shut up every avenue to enjoyment. I feel like I know I get sleepy suddenly in the evenings now. I'm not quite sure what that is. Anyway, my wife, my doctor, I'm Dr. Jill Biden. Um, I really hope at some point we get to read Clerval's journal. I know we'll only be on the same level as when we're hearing the creature's story, but it's still kind of funny. Oh, bloody hell, it does come on suddenly. We had agreed to descend the Rhine in a boat from Strasbourg to Rotterdam, whence we might take shipping for London. During this voyage, we passed many willowy islands and saw several beautiful towns. We stayed a day at Mannheim, and on the 5th from our departure from Strasbourg, arrived at Mainz. The course of the Rhine below Mainz becomes much more picturesque. Don't know if I'm saying these right. The river descends rapidly and winds between hills, not high, but steep, and of beautiful forms. We saw many ruined castles standing on the edges of precipices, surrounded by black woods, high and inaccessible. This part of the Rhine, indeed, presents a singularly variegated landscape. In one spot you view rugged hills, ruined castles overlooking tremendous precipices, with the dark Rhine rushing beneath. And on the second turn of a promontory, flourishing vineyards with green sloping banks and a meandering river and populous towns occupy the scene. I don't have a cough, it's just from talking. Oh. And from becoming suddenly sleepy. Ah, water. Pretty good for you. Who knew? I have got a tickle in my throat, but it's just from reading. We travelled at the time of the vintage, and heard the song of the labourers as we glided down the stream. Even I, depressed in mind, and my spirits continually agitated by gloomy feelings, even when I was pleased. I lay at the bottom of the boat, and as I gazed on the cloudless blue sky, I seemed to drink in a tranquillity to which I had long been a stranger. And if these were my sensations, who can describe those of Henry? Henry loves life. He's so happy. He felt as if he had been transported to fairyland and enjoyed a happiness seldom tasted by man. I have seen, he said, the most beautiful scenes of my own country. I have visited the lakes of Lucerne and Uri, where the snowy mountains descend almost perpendicularly to the water, casting black and impenetrable shades, which would cause a gloomy and mournful appearance were it not for the most verdant islands that relieve the eye by their gay appearance. I have seen this lake agitated by a tempest, when the water tore up whirlwinds of water and gave you an idea of what the waterspout must be on that great ocean, and the waves dashed with fury the base of the mountain, where the priest and his mistress were overwhelmed by an avalanche, and where their dying voices are still to be heard amid the pauses of the nightly wind. I have seen the mountains of La Valais and the Pays de Vaud, but this country, Victor, pleases me more than all those wonders. Come in, Clerval. Just you, no Niobe? No Niobe. Clerval is just happy. He's well, his brain works normally, so that's good. This country, Victor, pleases me more than all those wonders. The mountains of Switzerland are more majestic and strange, but there is a charm in the banks of this divine river that I never before saw equalled. Look at that castle which overhangs yon precipice, and that also on the island, almost concealed amongst the foliage of those lovely trees. And now that group of labourers coming from among their vines, and that village half hid in the recess of the mountain. Oh, surely the spirit that inhabits and guards this place has a soul more in harmony with man than those who pile the glacier or retire to the inaccessible peaks of the mountains of our own country. He is very gay and happy. There's two men in a boat. They're having a great time. Sorry about the sniffling. I think one of them has brought a pollen in on its fur. And now I, your hero, must have a mild inconvenience from that. Cloval, beloved friend, even now it delights me to record your words, even though they're very boring, and to dwell on the praise of which you are so eminently deserving. He was a being formed in the very poetry of nature. His wild and enthusiastic imagination was chastened by the sensibility of his heart. His soul overflowed with ardent affections, and his friendship was of that devoted and wondrous nature that the worldly minded teach us to look for only in the imagination. But even human sympathies were not sufficient to satisfy his eager mind. The scenery of external nature, which others regard only with admiration, he loved with ardour. And then there's a wee quote here from Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. The sounding cataract haunted him like a passion. The tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and gloomy wood, their colours and their forms were then to him an appetite, a feeling, and a love that had no need of remoter charm, by thought supplied, or any interest unborrowed from the eye. And where does he now exist? Josh, cover your ears. Cover your ears, my sweet prince. Where does he now exist? Is this gentle and lovely being lost forever? Has this mind, so replete with ideas, imaginations fanciful and magnificent, which formed a world whose existence depended on the life of its creator, has this mind perished? Does it now only exist in my memory? No, it is not thus. Your form, so divinely wrought and beaming with beauty, has decayed, but your spirit still visits and consoles your unhappy friend. I really hope somebody was shutting Josh's ears right then. Also, the ship's captain is so in love with Victor, I'm pretty sure he'll be upset to hear this. Pardon this gush of sorrow. These ineffectual words are but a slight tribute to the unexampled worth of Henry, but they soothe my heart, overflowing with the anguish which his remembrance creates. I will proceed with my tale. Beyond Cologne, we descended to the plains of Holland, and we resolved to post the remainder of our way, for the wind was contrary and the stream of the river was too gentle to aid us. Our journey here lost the interest arising from beautiful scenery, but we arrived in a few days at Rotterdam, whence we proceeded by sea to England. It was on a clear morning in the latter days of December that I first saw the white cliffs of Britain. The banks of the Thames presented a new scene. They were flat but fertile, and almost every town was marked by the remembrance of some story. We saw Tilbury Fort and remembered the Spanish Armada, Gravesend, Woolwich, and Greenwich, places which I had heard of even in my country. At length we saw the numerous steeples of London, St. Paul's towering over all, and the tower famed in English history. The end of the chapter. So, I know. Yeah, reanimate Clovel. Reanimate everybody. That's what they do in the movies. And, I mean, yeah, it spirals out of control, but not if you're smart. I could be the first one to beat it. But yeah, that's the end of chapter 18. So we know that Clerval bites it at some point between now and when the ship's captain picks up Victor Frankenstein. I am so sad, actually. But yeah, if you want to if you want to watch something on Netflix, because we're all binging Netflix right now, the Frankenstein Chronicles is actually really good. It's there's some supernatural shit, but mostly it's about the state of medicine and the state of policing, but mostly medicine, and in the very early 19th century. Sean Bean, fabulous as usual, wonderful, so good. I just find that kind of thing really interesting. Also, at one point, his character, who is a cop, but he's a nice person. His character figures out that a cholera outbreak is coming from one specific water pump in Broad Street. So he tries to get it removed, through official channels. He can't. People keep drinking the water from there because they won't believe him that the water's poisonous because they don't know how cholera spreads. So he just took the handle off the pump. It didn't work anymore. People had to go to another one. And the cholera outbreak died out, finished. It did actually happen, and the name of the doctor who did it in real life, Jon Snow. It's almost like it's a very common name. I thought it was cool anyway. My dad thought it was cool. Tali didn't. She thought it was boring, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Oh, you're getting your wisdom teeth out. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. It's gonna be the sucks for a little while. But yeah. Thank you very much for being here, guys. And I guess I will see some of you tomorrow at D&D. And the rest of you on Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. To find out what happens to Henry Clerval. Oh, you can't just listen in. We should all get super loopy. It would probably make us play better, actually, if anything. But thanks, you guys. Good luck, Josh. I'm going to the dentist tomorrow as well, but it's just for like a filling and some stuff. But yeah, good luck. We're all with you. Lithium. No, fuck lithium. No, thank you. All right. See you guys later. Stay safe. And do what you can to be kind in the apocalypse, I guess.